I've always been a glitter girl. My grandmother will tell you I came out of the womb sparkly. When you're near me, if you get too close to me, you're gonna get glitter on you. My name is Taylor McPherson. I am the creator of Current Events and the Sustainable Sparkle Bar. I do biodegradable glitter body art at music festivals, special events, and nightclubs and restaurants, and as experiential marketing for large events and openings, launches, things like that. I like to say I read your glitter aura. Everybody inside them has a glitter aura that's just waiting to come out. And when I do my custom glitter designs on people, it brings out their best selves. Classic glitter that is not biodegradable is a microplastic that cannot break down to any smaller form than it already is. We recycle plastic so that they can be melted down and reused. Since glitter is so small, once it gets to that size, it doesn't really go any smaller, and then it goes into the ocean. It goes through the drains, goes into the ocean, into our ecosystems. The fish eat it. As they talk about how there's all this plastic sitting at the bottom of the ocean, some of that plastic is glitter, unfortunately. So it's the Sustainable Sparkle Bar because the glitter is biodegradable and it's plant-based. It's made from the cellulose of eucalyptus trees, so there's no plastic and metal. My inspiration initially for the Sparkle Bar comes from going to Coachella. The first music festival I ever attended was Coachella in 2016. We had the best experience ever. It was so amazing. And I got to actually see other people walking around with glitter and sparkles on them, like I already was doing in New Jersey, just by myself. And I was like, wow, I'm not the only one that loves glitter and sparkles. Like maybe, somebody else would be interested in this. So I left Coachella and I started wearing glitter and sparkles in my hair and makeup on a daily basis. Instead of just for holidays, like just for Halloween or like something special, I just started wearing it, if we were going out on a Friday night, going to happy hour, whenever I was doing my makeup, I put sparkles on. So after a year of doing that, I was like, okay, let me try to sparkle others. From the first time I ever visited Los Angeles, I was like, I could see myself living here. I proceeded to visit LA a few times a year between the first time I came in 2016 to when I moved in 2018. And in 2017, I was here 5 times. And at that point, I was like, when you come all the way across the country 5 times in a year, like it's time to move. Like clearly I like it here. Like it's time to move. Here in LA, like you can't shock anybody with anything anymore. Like West Hollywood, it's like I could literally have my whole face covered in glitter and people would be like, oh, that's so cool. Like my friend loves glitter. Like you got to meet this person or let me take your picture. And like people just get it. You're surrounded by artists and creatives out here and you don't have to explain why you're doing something. You just are. And so it's just a better environment for me, can truly be myself. I was starting to go to a lot of networking events, meet other people who also had event companies, and they would hand me their business card and it would be like a laundry list of all of the events that they did. Birthdays, sweet 16s, weddings, baby showers, which is great. Of course you can do all those things, but it kind of stuck out to me that there was nothing specific about them. And I realized that I needed something that was specific about me, my event company, and my brand. And that has always been glitter and sparkles. So I started telling people that I throw sparkle parties. I told them, I do glitter themed events, all different types of sparkle energy glitter parties. And then that turned into me bringing all the glitter that I already had, boxing it up in a display box, bringing it to an equality event. The first event was, mildly successful. And then the next event that I did was 4th of July on the boardwalk in Asbury Park, New Jersey. And I made the same amount of money in one day as I would have in 1 week working at my current part-time job. And it was all cash, all my money. And I made that money by putting glitter on people and making people happy. Sometimes people are reluctant. I will say there's some people who run up and they're like, sparkles, yes, put them on me. I love glitter, everything. And there's other people that are like, oh, glitter. And you can see they're kind of like looking around and then I'll have like a conversation with them. Like, so what types of, how do you normally show your style? My favorite part of sparkling anybody is the reveal. So then I show them and they're always like, oh my God, wow. Like that's my favorite part. This year was gonna be my first year actually having business at Coachella. The first week when COVID cases started to go up really high in early March, I happened to be in New Jersey. I was there to do a St. Patrick's Day event, which was actually probably the last large scale event that was able to happen in Asbury Park, New Jersey before the shutdown. That was March 8th. And, everybody was out. We were so close to people, thinking nothing of it. I mean, I was doing things to be very precautious with sanitizing all of my utensils, but nobody was really that worried about COVID. That following week, as I went to confirm all of my events that I had scheduled for that weekend, they basically just started to cancel one by one. By the end of that week, we were officially declared in a global pandemic and told that we needed to stay at home. They had to redo all of their paperwork and all the contracts that we were signing, which took me about an extra month to be able to get any of the deposit funds, which was, when all of my income went away in a week, being able to get deposits for future events in an event planner world is huge. Coachella got canceled, which I had business scheduled to be in. Stagecoach was canceled. And I was basically looking at having no income or revenue, even though I was originally slated to have my largest music festival year of my career. I'm an optimist. I like to be very up. Well, during the most part, like during the heavy part of the pandemic, I was drinking a lot. So it's nice to say upbeat when you're having a cocktail. And I will say that that's definitely like through the initial part of the shutdown, like that's what helped me get through it. The first thing I did was try to adjust to my online sales. So I put together a couple of at-home sparkle kits, which I put on my website to sell. And then I also kind of just took a step back. Instead of trying to force any business in an event space that wasn't happening, I decided to just take that time to regroup for myself. I took a break from social media for like the entire month of April. And I was like trying to find old event photos and old event videos to post was becoming depressing because it's like, I don't want to see old events like from festivals that we used to have that I don't even know we're going to be able to have again. And I started a live show with one of my best friends on my Instagram, where every night we would get on Instagram live with Taylor and Kate at 8. And because we were on the East Coast, so it was 8 o'clock. And we would just talk about how we were feeling in the pandemic. And then it transitioned into talking about like dating, because they talked about how online dating was surging in the pandemic. So we would have our time where we would like be like swiping like crazy. We'd be matching all of these guys. And then we would come on live and like talk about our escapades and like the conversations that we've had. And they ranged from somebody sending me the first like video they sent me. We're like having a conversation. The first video they sent me is like a whole striptease video. And I was like, whoa. So I guess that kind of makes you smile and makes you stay upbeat. Or all the way to like things not going really well, where like somebody said something like super racist, like cracked a joke about Abe Lincoln loving chocolate as to why he wanted to talk to a Black woman. And I was like, no, like you're immediately blocked. So I will say that like doing that every day helped me stay upbeat, because for one, it forced me to like put makeup on, be in front of a camera and like be talking to people every night. And we did it every day for about 3 months, all the way until right after George Floyd got murdered. And then we did a couple of stories or a couple of shows talking about that. And then next thing you know, California started to reopen. So I went back to work. So then once I got back to LA, I had basically a few weeks to get my life in order. I noticed the energy just different in the grocery stores. It's like in New Jersey, everybody's heads were down, mask and gloves, waiting on lines and all that stuff. I got back here and I noticed people weren't wearing gloves in the grocery store. They had masks on, but they weren't also wearing gloves. The energy in the air wasn't as depressing as it was in New Jersey, because the caseload was so high there in New Jersey for the bulk of it. After I spent time by myself getting my apartment in order, 2 weeks went by, and then I went on a road trip with friends to Vegas, where we stayed in another friend's house who had an Airbnb. So it was like a controlled getaway. It wasn't a hotel. It wasn't anything too public, but we were able to go out and like do something different. So that was a nice transitional experience. And then the next thing you know, we're watching CNN from Vegas on a Saturday night, and we're watching Melrose burn. And we all, lived in West Hollywood, and we're like, oh my God, that's our neighborhood. I'm like, that's literally the closest Starbucks to me. We decided we wanted to help. We started to see how people were cleaning up the neighborhood. So we were like, okay, like maybe there's some way we can clean up the neighborhood. A friend and I drove around and found different spots of graffiti that were negative. A good trick for anybody that doesn't know how to get off spray paint: nail polish remover and a magic eraser will take off spray paint. So we went around the city, and I guess we were anti-tagging. So we found different places to cover up negative graffiti. And one of the days we did it, we were on Sunset. And this was when it was really hot, when there was protests going every single day. And we had just painted over graffiti that said fuck 12, and we made it say K through 12 education matters. And as we're like finishing up, we hear the protest coming up, and we were like, oh my God, that's a protest. We're like, should we join? We're like, yeah. We all looked at each other. We're like, yeah, let's join. And that was our first protest. We walked all the way down Highland and then down Wilshire, and we marched onto Eric Garcetti's house. The protest would have thousands of people. Everybody was wearing masks. And once you're immediately around that many people, you're not thinking so much like, oh my God, we were supposed to not be around. We're supposed to social distance. We're supposed to not be around all these people. We're supposed to not see anybody. All of the thought of that goes away, and you start thinking about, what you're fighting for, and you're conscious of the fact that, like, as you're walking through the protest, somebody's giving you hand sanitizer, somebody's handing out water bottles, people are playing music, people are upbeat, and everybody is fighting towards the same thing. And you see people who have signs that say Koreans for Black Lives Matter, Chinese people for Black Lives Matter, Latinos for Black Lives Matter, and everybody, it's like, wow, it's so nice to see how much support that there actually is around the community that I think sometimes the media tries to not show. They try to make it so singular that it's just, angry Black people who are against white supremacy, that are trying to take down capitalism, that are supporting Black Lives Matter, when it's like really that's not even the messaging, but that's how they like to steer it. With all of the protests that were happening and me going to the protests, I was like, okay, I need to do more research. So I started watching videos on Amazon Prime. I watched a video called Freedom Summer, which is all about voter suppression that happened in the state of Mississippi back in the 60s, and how Black people used to have to take a literacy test just to register to vote. And then regardless of whether you got it right or not, like, they would have somebody who was there to register you to vote to be like, oh no, you didn't get this question right. And they would make them do it again just because they wanted to suppress the vote.
All types of conniving methods are still being used to keep Negroes from becoming registered voters. And in fact, some are even killed for seeking to lead voter registration drives.
So I educated myself on that. I started watching videos on the Black Panthers, and I started learning about the Black Panther Party for self-defense, and how, because the Black Panthers were following the police around with guns to try to deter police brutality back in the 60s, they changed the gun laws in California. The only time the gun laws have ever been changed, because the Black Panthers decided to walk around with guns. So Black people are walking around with guns they legally own, and they changed the gun laws. So I started to do my research and educate myself on the movement that happened back in the 60s and into the early 70s to get an idea of what the possibilities are of the movement that we're living through now, and also to get an idea of how long this is really going to be. When you start to read about how the sit-ins that happened went over a year, the bus boycott went over a year, I just immediately realized that what we're living through, it's not going to be there's no quick resolution. We've been, dealing with systemic oppression and, people having redline neighborhoods, Black people not being able to get business loans. Literally, they have written racism into law in this country so deeply that in order to overturn all these laws that have been written against it's going to take so much time. I happen to be somebody who grew up in a predominantly white community. So I have predominantly white friends. And even here moving in LA, I still have predominantly white friends. So it's not like when you're constantly around Black people, you don't have to, there's no questions because we live it. We live the struggle. We know what it is. But when you're around people who aren't people of color, they don't understand. When it first happened, I felt like part of my civic duty was to be everybody's educator. Like, if you want to talk about what's going on with the racial climate, like, you can ask me, I'm here to field your questions. But after about a month of that, I was physically exhausted. Like, it drains you a lot. And then you start to have conversations with people who claim that they're trying to get it and that they're trying to see things differently, but then their actions show that they're not really trying to get it or see anything differently. And then that becomes emotionally draining. Like, I like to talk a lot about energy exchange, and like with me sparkling someone, how it's an energy exchange. When you're having conversations about race and dialogue, that is a huge energy exchange. And some people just want to suck all of your energy away from you and not give anything back. And once I started to experience too many instances like that, I had to sort of take a step back. So with everything being canceled, I started doing the protest and rally events, because they were just, they're very guerrilla style. You pop up, you bring your stuff. And it was really great to get connected with a lot of other Black business owners. And because of that, my inspiration was actually to do the fist symbol. Stands for so many different things. It represents so many different things and means things to so many different people. So I have a great manufacturer, so I can do custom stencils. I got these created and I started doing them for Juneteenth. The owner of the yoga studio, which is Urban 728 Hot Yoga, that I work at part-time, and I have been there since the day I moved to West Hollywood, saw that I was doing them on Instagram and wanted to support me, and also wanted to be able to give me some additional publicity because he live streams yoga for free every single day on YouTube. So he was like, oh, I want you to do a tattoo on me, and then it can be shown and everybody can see it and it'll be really great. So I did the tattoo on him. Once a lot of other people saw what I was doing, they also became interested in it. And then the studio got the opportunity to plop up at Employees Only and do outdoor yoga. And when Joe, the studio owner, heard about the opportunity, he immediately thought about me because they said they wanted to have an outdoor festival vibe, and said, we have to bring in the Sparkle Bar. It's a great connection for everything that you're doing. Yes, people are definitely receptive to it. Something that I really like to do is to make sure that my setup looks really beautiful and spectacular, so that when you see it from far away, you're kind of like, oh, like, what is that? And you want to learn more, you're intrigued by it, so it will draw people in. And then also the idea of once I sparkle somebody and then they go back to sit at their table, because they're really great with their social distancing guidelines at Employees Only. Once you're sitting at your table, you can take your mask off, but if you need to move throughout the space for anything, they ask that you put your mask on. I think the hardest obstacle is the fact that, like, if you work in the event space, you know, especially in large events, you're experiencing a completely different pandemic than somebody who has a 9-to-5 job that can just work from home and, you know, still continue to do the exact same job they were doing, collect the exact same paycheck. They haven't had to pivot. So I think the biggest challenges are trying to be creative and stay upbeat, and figure out, you know, what I can do despite the fact that I can't, you know, go to a music festival for 100,000 people. A great pivot that I have been able to experience is doing more business dedicated here in West Hollywood. So I've had the opportunity in the past to work with Sir Restaurant and Soho House, and those are some great, you know, heavy hitter restaurants in the area. And because of the pandemic, I got the opportunity to work with Employees Only, which is another great, you know, upscale restaurant that I loved to frequent before the pandemic. But because, you know, people are traveling less with the pandemic, I would love to be able to work more on intimate events right here in, you know, the city where we live. I am going to be back at Employees Only for Halloween, which will be really exciting because, you know, West Hollywood is huge for Halloween. It'll be so interesting to see how the city changes it this year with the pandemic. And I also, for the past 2 years, I've been trying to increase my holiday party business. And I think this year will be a great year because people will be doing more intimate gatherings, you know, for 20, 25 people. And glitter, or Christmas is the glitter holiday. So like Christmas, New Year's Eve, that whole arena is made for sparkles, and that's what I do.
And it's the people that will cause the revolution, and it's the people that will cause the change in the country. The Black Panther Party is simply the vanguard of the revolution, and we plan to teach the people the strategy and the necessary tools to liberate themselves.